Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we're going to be back with another podcast, just like the first one we did with Kyle. And we're going to be going over, a lot of the news of the week leading up to champs, as well as some of the reactions to Major 5, possibly one of the best majors we've ever seen in Call of Duty, even with a new format we have. But yeah, it's just going to be an overall podcast going over the last major in news. We're probably not going to get into predictions for like the full champs bracket in this episode, just because I feel like with us talking about so many other things, like we're going to do a kind of like a GM segment, what we want to do with each roster heading into next year. I think all that's going to take so long, and I don't want to cut predictions short for champs, because obviously we don't just want to give our predictions in 10 minutes and get on with it. It's kind of a biggest tournament of the year. You want to get in depth and stuff. So I think we're just going to get right into it. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Ryan. It seems like every day in the lead up to champs, we're getting more and more news, and uh, I keep DMing you asking when we're going to record, when are we going to record, and I'm glad that we're finally able to align our schedules, and just happy to be back, man.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a flu game for me. Not that I'm sick or anything, but I'm recording while there's tornado warnings around my area. So if you're hearing this podcast, that means my house didn't get ripped up, my power didn't go out, so the podcast actually got through. But there's crazy weather where I am. We don't really have anything like this, so it's kind of weird. I heard sirens going off, and I thought it was the apocalypse or something. But I'm ready to talk COD. That's a little more exciting than tornadoes. All right. We're going to get into news first. I think we'll do a news segment and then get into Major 5, because I feel like easing in with news is better. So the first thing I want to talk about was obviously the biggest news of the day, probably champs, is happening with fans. I don't know about you, but I can't believe it. I thought it was completely chalked. I thought best case scenario, we were getting LAN champs with nobody in the building but the players.
Oh man, I was super nervous, especially after seeing the first LAN back for Major 5, and there was a few days where everyone was talking about these are the scenarios we're going to move online, or fans aren't going to be there, and I thought that was just going to be the worst thing to possibly follow up Major 5, which a lot of people, myself included, are calling it one of the like of all time.
Oh yeah.
So I'm super happy that they're finding a way to do it, and I think that's good for the whole scene.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's happening with fans, especially like, I mean, I guess I could maybe see a world where it happens like without fans, but I thought with the numbers going up with COVID cases, especially with like players like Scump, Envoy, I think even Methods testing positive for COVID, I thought that's the last straw. They don't want any liability stuff, especially. So there's no way fans are going to be there, especially in California, because California has been the most strict of really anywhere in terms of like COVID protocols and stuff. So and it would have been, how big of a letdown would it have been to have online champs after like they basically just teased us with like the best. It's definitely the best event since the CDL became a thing. That's for sure. It's better than any MW event or any event we've had this year. There's no doubt about that. And as somebody that's been watching since Black Ops 2 on, that's one of the best events I've ever seen. So for somebody like you who's been watching really since MW, that's got to be the best event you've ever seen. Like, not close.
Yeah, and especially after I think maybe a few minutes after Rokkr won the Stage 5 Major, I tweeted that I was never going to watch another online Call of Duty match ever. So big ups to the CDL for making it happen. Just for me, I'd like to thank you all for that, or I'd like everyone to thank me for making it a reality. So
I think honestly too, like the production team and everything, like last year we like to bash on them all the time because like it was the same, like lots of ads. Not that they can do anything about that, but like I don't know, the broadcast was just always the same. They never changed it up. I think they deserve a little props this time too, because like I think it was the first day, like the crowd audio was like so delayed that after like a big play, it was like 3, 4, 5 seconds later you heard the crowd roar, and it was like, okay, it's like cool to hear the crowd, but they're like so delayed that it's like kind of takes away the effect. But then like towards like the Saturday Sunday, like the crowd was right on, like they were screaming as the play was happening. So like I don't know, it made it sound a lot better when they were actually like reacting real time rather than 5 seconds delayed. Like somebody got a big 3-piece and then 5 seconds later you hear the scream. It, like, I don't know, it just didn't have the same effect. But then Sunday they had that volume cranked, and like while people were making the plays, the crowd was going crazy, and that was awesome.
yeah, that was definitely you know, good to see them turn that around with just to get especially since the casters aren't in and we don't get the crowd pumping through their mics as well.
Yeah.
For stage 5, hopefully we'll have them back for the for champs, but that's kind of up in the air still. It sounds like maybe the casters aren't even sure if they're going to be in house, but I guess we'll take a small victory when we can.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I want to say on that is they talked about like I don't know the exact procedure, but they mentioned that like you have to have a proof of vaccination as a fan to get in, or I think it was like a negative like PCR test within like 72 hours of like when you're getting into the event. So I mean, they're really cracking down on like trying to make sure everybody's vaccinated. And I think it was like no matter your vaccination status, you have to have a mask on at all times during the event. And I'm sure they're gonna have the same protocols where like players, you're not allowed to like go up to the players, take pictures and stuff. Because I mean, I'm sure no player is gonna risk taking a picture with anybody because if they have a positive COVID test, they're done. They can't compete. And obviously, no player wants to be taken out of the event for outside reasons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's good, especially for keeping the players healthy as well.
Yeah.
And just because it's a mass gathering,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too bogged down in the public health of it, but especially if Scump and Envoy came down with it, and you don't know who else they were with,
Hmm.
back in the team rooms. So hopefully that this will be a good mitigation. Um, and hopefully we're able to see full capacity arena.
Yeah, even I mean, even not even the like to deal with the health of it. Even like nobody wants to see like, oh, it's Champs Sunday, and let's say we have Optic versus Faze, and oh, Scump has a positive test, Simp has a positive test. Then you see a bunch of subs play, and it's like even not even like COVID related, but that sucks to watch a final where teams aren't at full strength, and like nobody wants to see some team win because of a fluke. And I guarantee you, the players don't want to win because the other team's got 3 players missing or something. It's like it just would ruin the weekend if a bunch of players can't play. It basically ruin the whole buildup of the year.
Yeah, I saw a funny tweet where they said that Embo's Maniac Sender in general were going to be the starting lineup for Optic. So if only.
It'll be the ultimate storyline. It'll be like Method subs in for Toronto and wins champs or something.
I'm sure you'd love that.
I'd love that. All right. Next topic we want to get into. Um, I can't believe we're talking about them because they're not at champs, but Seattle Surge. It was mostly like news from like yesterday, today. That apparently Octane mentioned on Reddit, I believe it was, that Surge wanted Standy. Not even like mid-year. It was before the cold season began. They wanted him as their substitute. Obviously, teams are required to have one substitute, but it sounds like basically they were told no by the organization, and they had to use Joey Nubsy as their sub. Which obviously he's the coach of the Surge. Like technically, yes, he is a part of the team, but there's no chance Joey Nubsy was ever playing in a match unless he was absolutely forced to. But it was just unbelievable to me that like Standy, obviously, we all knew that he was talented even before he was in the league because he won Challenger Champs last year in the NA. So, like, obviously, got to have some talent to do that. But, like, to me, it's unbelievable that, like, they wanted Standy before the season. Like, imagine when they wanted to sub out Looney, throw Standy on that team with Pristini and Gunless and Octane. Like, that team could have been pretty darn good.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, I forgot that Looney was on this team to start. He was it seems like especially especially Octane, he realizes that the ship is sinking and he's gonna get off on on the last life raft.
Yep, for sure.
And this Bob Morris GM guy was saying that they wanted to make moves and ownership was kind of hamstringing them.
Yeah.
Octane seemed to back that up on Reddit as well with a bunch of exclamation
Hmm.
points. So it's hard to see a future where Octane remains with the team, and
Yeah.
this is kind of unfortunate for the Seattle Surge Luminosity org because it's kind of rubbing kind of giving them a bad rap in the community. Like,
Yes,
are
definitely.
other players going to want to go there if they are not going to get the best chance to win? I mean, the job of an org and of a GM is to put the best tools around your superstars to win.
Hmm.
And if Octane wasn't getting the people that he needed or that he wanted behind closed doors to win, that's probably why he's been so frustrated in part, not just because they're losing, but because he's realizing that it's like an organizational issue.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate for them too because like Luminosity obviously had a pretty like strong name in the COD scene for the last how many years? Because during the Optic Dynasty, they're always kind of like one of those teams that was competing them with like Octane and Classic, Slack, John, those guys, JCap for a while, even Formal. Like they have a storied history in Call of Duty since really like the Jetpack era of being like a staple team that like did right by their players, and not that they like completely did wrong by their players in this situation, but like it's gonna taint them for like a while now because like it's not like Octane was making crazy demands, like sign all these crazy players for like an insane contract. Like I'm sure if they signed Standy before the season, like it would have been a pretty cheap deal because it would have been Standy's first shot in the pro league. And like if you're not even willing to pay like a substitute, if you're so cheap that you're just gonna have Joey Nubsy, your coach, be your substitute, like that says a lot about you as an Oregon. Like every time they want to make a move mid-season, they like deny it. And like that Bob Morris, who was the GM, like he's away from the Surge now, and he was saying like he can't believe the players didn't go insane basically during the year. And like how much wasted talent do they have? Not only like obviously Octane's a great player, but like they could have been like one of the most popular teams, like content wise. Like Pristini is a very popular, well known, like loved player. I mean, Classic's been around forever. He's got enough of a following. Gunless, same thing. He streams a lot. He's got enough of a following. And Octane, I mean, apart from like the Optic guys, is one of the biggest YouTubers in the league, like in terms of subscribers and viewers and stuff. Like they blew it on every account. Like they could have just made a couple moves, had a better team, like competing wise, and still been a top content team. Like it's gonna be like I'm assuming Octane's leaving. So like the fact that they choked away being able to be a decent team, and being one of the most popular just because they were unwilling to spend money or time, it's like a sad CDL story to start out for the first couple of years.
For sure, I think that history will, maybe we might be looking back on the first few years of the Seattle Surge as one of the biggest wasted
Hmm.
talents. You had prime Octane for 2 years, and you finished at the bottom of the barrel for 2 straight years.
Well, I also think like these teams like your LAG and your Paris and your Surge, like I mean, London was in the playoffs and stuff last year and made it to top four, so I don't want to count them as much since they did have a like decent first year at least. But like your teams like your Paris, your LAG, and your Surge all kind of have a reputation of not wanting to spend money on players and not like Paris not going after Hydra. I mean, LAG just settling for a roster that wasn't performing well and then never making changes. Surge not willing to sign anybody. It's like at some point, like by having so many bad years to start and like not spending any money on anything, like pretty soon you're going to get a reputation that you can't outrun. If you know what I'm saying, like players just aren't going to want to play for you, and that's going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll start to see that, perhaps in this roster mania season. You might start to see these bad reputations of just teams that have not been successful.
Yeah.
So it might continue. It might kind of perpetuate this like rich get rich and the poor get
Hmm.
poorer.
Last thing I have to say on that too is like this isn't like NFL, NBA, MLB where like LAG, it's like oh you're in LA, kind of like a destination city. Like the players aren't really living and where they have to play because like at this point online isn't good enough to live in California. It's like actually like the worst place to live for your connection. So it's not like LAG can just throw out like hey we have LA, like come to us. Like players aren't really living where they play. So it's not like a super benefit to be in LA if you're not willing to spend any money. And I think I mean for God's sakes, I think LAG's owner is one of the richest. I think he owns the Rams or whatever. Like he's super super rich. I don't know why he can't spend the money. But
Oh, yeah, going yeah.
uh
When we get onto our play of the GM, I'll be touching on that a little bit. But yeah, I think we can move on.
All right. The next topic we had was Clayster, not official, but potentially back on NYSL for champs. I don't think we really need to talk about this one too much, but it was basically rumored. I think it was CDL intel, like always. That like said he was seen scrimming with New York, so Clayster potentially back for champs. Good or bad?
Uh, yeah, I'm kind of. I think the jury's out. I don't know if we know too much about what's going on in their team room,
Yeah.
what the vibes are like. Obviously, a talent like Clayster can't be a bad thing in a vacuum, but
No.
yeah, I guess it'll have to. I guess we'll have to see how they perform, how the vibes look at champs.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like I think it's honestly like got to be the right move because like to me, like best case with Diamond Con, you like maybe upset Optic, then lose to Faze, find a way to get like top 6, top 4, like best case. And with Clay, I don't know that you finish much better than top 6, top 4. Again, I don't know. I still don't know that you get past Faze in the second round, but like at least like you have that chance if you can kind of like honeymoon it for a little bit and like get back on the same page and like get to that level that we saw them at with like the Clay, Mac, Asim, Hydra roster. Like best case for me, that team could make a run to like a top 3. I don't think they have top 3 potential with Diamond Con. I don't really think they're going to get top 3 with Clay either, but I'm saying I think their potential is higher, so I guess it's better for them.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's at this point, it's like you got to go with the roster that's going to give you a better chance to win, and I don't think anybody's going to say that Diamond Con at champs gives you a better chance to win than the back-to-back champ Clayster.
Yeah, that's probably right, and especially adding the LAN factor in.
Yep, and a crowd. I mean, crowds are going to be behind Clayster unless they're playing Optic. He's one of the most popular players.
Right.
All right, the next thing we want to talk about, the modern Warzone Twitter that does like a lot of Warzone stuff news. Was saying that the next title, obviously being Vanguard, the World War II title that's coming out, is going to blow expectations out of the water. That's a quote from them. And one thing you wanted to talk about was, can we hope the same for the competitive side? Because obviously, when we hear them say blow expectations out of the water, at this point, we're probably almost assuming they're talking about Warzone, because that's kind of like the main thing in COD now. But what do you think? Can we hope the same for competitive side? Do you think blow expectations out of the water means for the competitive side as well?
I mean, it depends on who they're, trying to play to. I mean, I think the general direction of Call of Duty is playing towards the Warzone
Yeah,
and
definitely.
multiplayer community.
Mhm.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. Like always, I don't think I don't think competitive is really ever highlighted in an alpha or, the trailer. It would be really interesting if it was, like, if we got some skins immediately in the trailer or something for like the teams. I think that would really like be interesting. But
Yeah, kind of like Halo's doing already with their
right,
esports.
yeah. I mean, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But you know, I guess we're already hyping up the next title. I'm excited to see, especially since it's going to be like another like historical boots on the ground game.
See, yeah, when I
So
see leakers talking about stuff like this, I like obviously like when I see them saying that like the game is like gonna blow expectations out of the water, and like I want to let myself get excited because I get excited for it every year, but like I also have gotten to the point where like I got really excited for Modern Warfare because they were talking about it so good, and that's my least favorite Call of Duty ever made, and it's not close. So it's like I'm always gonna get hyped for the next COD because I love like COD esports and stuff. So I obviously really want like the game to be good, and I'm gonna go in with a positive mindset, thinking it's gonna be good. But I'll say my hopes have gone up a little bit, but I allow myself to do this every year. I get my hopes up way too much, and then it doesn't end up being true. I will say for the competitive side though, last time we had a Sledgehammer title, World War II, it was the best ranking system we've ever had. We've talked about it a lot, so we don't need to get into it. But obviously, they had an elo system. So in terms of like for us, the casual fan, the CDL fan, I have hope that they'll give us an elo system again because it's, I mean, common sense. I mean, a game. I don't know if you've played Splitgate yet, but I'm obviously a huge Halo fan, and Splitgate is very similar to Halo. And the game came out and it's in beta and it has an elo rank system, and it was made by like a 4-person development team. Like it isn't that hard. It's not rocket science. Like I have hope that Activision, the multi-billion-dollar company for competitive, will at least give us an elo system like they did last time Sledgehammer made a game. That's my only hope for competitive.
yeah, I mean, if I just feel like if somebody prioritizes it in the development stage, it'll happen. But obviously,
Yeah.
we haven't seen that for since World War II. So
And apparently a lot of like the former pros that were working there, like Merc and Rambo and stuff, like constantly talk to them about like what they need to do, and they basically just turned a blind eye to what they were saying. Um, Makes me sad and kind of like makes me appreciate guys like Merc and like Rambo that stuck their necks out for us and like tried to advocate for us. And unfortunately for them, they didn't care. But that's my only thing is I'll say I hope that like by saying blow expectations out of the water, they're talking about multiplayer, and that multiplayer is actually going to be pretty good. Because honestly, if it's at the level of World War II, I'd be pretty happy because I thought World War II was very fun competitively. Pubs sucked, but I thought competitive was like one of the better games we've had. So that's what I'd say about that. And then that I don't think it was the same leaker. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been like Ghost or whatever. His name is Ghost something. He does a lot of leaks for COD. Um, but he said that like an anti-cheat for the next title has been in development for a while. And then as we were like working on our notes for this podcast, like that was the update. And then I looked quick again before we started recording, and it's like supposed to potentially be implemented into like Warzone for the next title and multiplayer. And then all of a sudden, the dude said that it could come as soon as tomorrow night in Warzone. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not really a Warzone player, so it doesn't affect me that much. But obviously, I know an anti-cheat is badly needed in Warzone.
Yeah, definitely. First, I'll touch on the competitive. Definitely will help the challengers, especially if they're remaining online for the next title. For Warzone, I've cheating has been rampant since Warzone dropped. It's only been getting worse. They've tried these ban waves and making people use a phone number when they create a new Activision account. I'm happy for all the Warzone streamers. I think it'll
100%.
I think it will kind of solidify their spot because I know a lot of them have started to play Apex and
Yep.
Splitgate and stuff. So
Splitgate's an
and
awesome game though.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are especially with the BR scene. It's like, what's the next thing coming out, or what's the next game? We'll all go play that. So I think having more people on a Call of Duty title, whether it's Warzone or the next title, can only be a good thing for you know keeping people engaged in the COD scene and hopefully get more eyes to competitive by some means.
Yeah, and also shout out to the challengers players because if it is in the next game for multiplayer, um, obviously with like a lot of the challengers players playing on PC and not as much eyes on it, it seems like a lot of people were cheating in like certain tournaments and stuff this year. I even heard it like champs. I can't remember if it was APAC or EU, but I think it was EU because I think it was a Spanish team, but I'm not sure. Like apparently people were like accusing them of cheating, and then finally when they got to whatever it was, I don't know, top 12, top 8, top 6, I don't know what it was, but I heard about it. And apparently like they turned on a monitor cam because everybody was accusing them, and then the second they turned on the monitor cam, they got instantly 3-0'd, which who knows, it could be coincidence, but that's awfully suspicious that you're accused of cheating. You're rolling over teams, you turn on a monitor cam and you get 3-0'd. But like stuff like that, the fact that it's happening at champs, like I would just feel awful for players like that are like truly grinding, not so hard all year, and then like to get knocked out by a cheater, that's just no integrity. It's like the worst thing ever. So I'm excited for all the challengers players that hopefully it's true, hopefully it works well. So there can be a legit scene, no cheaters, because these people are dedicating so much time to try to make it in the CDL that like to have a potential career and life changing moment for you ruined by cheaters is just like the worst thing imaginable. So I hope it really works well for challengers. That's my biggest hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think they touched on it on the best of three pod about that Spanish EU team or something
Yeah.
that did it with that. I mean, you just kind of hope that you know nobody's gonna fluke into a pro spot by
No.
cheating, and I think that's part of the reason why we generally see the same names stick around, uh, especially in the time of like online exclusive events and stuff. You know, maybe because we've seen so much like accusations, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, that we'll only see the true cream of the crop rise.
Yeah. So obviously, I think to summarize anti-cheat, obviously it's a good thing as long as it works correctly. I can't believe it took this long, but for all the Warzone players and streamers, I really hope it works for them because also same thing there. Getting cheated out of money in the tournament would suck, regardless of if it's competitive COD or Warzone. It would suck. Um, then last topic we had, um, this was your topic more that you probably have more knowledge on than me. So you want to set it up?
Yeah. So with all of the Activision Blizzard, uh, sexual harassment, sexual misconduct allegations that came out, T-Mobile dropped the Overwatch League. They were a sponsor for the Overwatch League, and they cut their ties with them for sponsorship.
Yeah.
And we've kind of seen this with Activision Blizzard. We've seen kind of like silence from them,
Yeah.
for lack of a better thing. I think a week or two ago they had a big walkout,
Mm-hmm.
and social media kind of tried to kind of have some outrage and act activism on it and stuff. So kind of how this plays into the CDL. Like, are we going to see sponsors start wavering with the CDL? If T-Mobile decides to drop the CDL as well, just kind of something to keep your eye on. I don't think anything's going to happen right away, but hopefully Activision Blizzard will address this because it was pretty disturbing. I don't want to
Yeah, it
go and
was.
rehash the stuff. I think there was even somebody died as a result of it or something.
Yeah.
So definitely something to take seriously.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I mean, I haven't done enough research to like detailed speak on the topic, but from what I thought I saw, this wasn't like an isolated incident either in the company. It was like a ton of accusations of not like one person either. A lot of like the culture of the company was built in like a lot of like sexual harassment was just like brushed under the rug and like swiped to the side and like allowed to happen in the company. And it wasn't like a single person like you see in a lot of companies because it's obviously a huge company with a lot of employees and like it sounded like it was a ton of different people like creating this behavior in the workplace and obviously something that can't be happening and especially in a company that big to just like see it happening, see the accusations come out, so many accusations come out, so it's not like it's a one time like one person accusing it. You have plenty of accusers and they just been brushing under the rug. It's kind of sad to see, to be honest, because I mean obviously and you'd just rather have it not happen at all in the first place, but when it finally gets brought up and people bring have the courage to bring it up, you would hope that they'd address it in a way and swiftly like get rid of people that have been accused and stuff. And it just like it seems like at this point they're just trying to save face and like not talk about it, which is sad to see and going to be probably pretty damning for the Overwatch and COD League because I mean if the parent company is not willing to do anything to change the culture they have, I can see why sponsors would want to back out because I mean what sponsor wants to associate themselves with a company that's not going to address issues of sexual harassment in the workplace? I mean nobody wants to be associated with that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the same organization and league that they took a week. They back last May when the whole George Floyd thing happened. They pushed the event
Yeah,
and they pushed the event to the next week, and so it's kind of just this like dichotomy of like,
yeah.
what's our real? Are we for these social issues or are we not?
Yeah, just
And
inconsistency across the board.
it is, and I'd really like to see, especially from a multi-billion-dollar company, I'd like to see you know, some accountability, if nothing
Yeah.
else.
I believe,
Um,
like I don't know who it was, didn't somebody towards the top of the company that was involved in a lot of stuff resign? I thought I saw something about that. I don't think it was CEO, but I thought I could be wrong, but I thought I saw somebody towards the top of the company resigned with all everything going on. Um,
See, this is
and I
where I
wasn't
wish I would
sure.
have, I wish I would have
Yeah.
read into it a little bit more, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of, because this stuff was going on before Stage 5, I was kind of surprised that, maybe one or two teams would have kind of said, oh, hey, we're not going to play until,
Yeah.
you address this or
They
at least make
must
a
like
statement.
yeah, and they must be like trying to prevent. I mean, this is also speculation too, but they must be like trying to tell employees, like top employees, even within the CDL, to not speak too much on it. Because I saw like a couple teams tweet about like we support the walkout that like when Activision Blizzard employees held that walkout. I saw like a couple. I believe like I saw Paris, maybe New York. They might have all, but those are the ones I remember seeing. Like tweeted something about like supporting them walking out, and like obviously the commissioner of both the Overwatch League and the COD League is Joanna Faries, a woman who, I mean, is very high up in the company and holds a lot of power in the company. And I'm like very shocked. Maybe she did say something about it, but I don't remember seeing anything about it. But I'm shocked. They must be like holding her and not allowing her to say anything because I would feel like, especially as a woman with all the women in the company accusing men of all this harassment, I would think that she would want to come out as a woman and a leader and like condemn it and talk about it. And I mean, obviously, I'm sure she does, but I haven't seen a statement or anything, and I'm sure that's not by her choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough area for someone like someone like her. I mean, a prominent, powerful woman
Yeah,
in a probably a male dominated company at the higher ups.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So yeah, just something to keep your eye on going forward. We don't really have too much else
No.
to provide on that, but just something I thought was interesting.
The main thing is I hope, regardless of whatever happens with sponsors, I hope there's a culture fix there because nobody should be going through all this stuff in the workplace. It's pretty ridiculous that it's still happening in such high numbers at a company with so much money and resources to just like teach people not to do it. I mean, not that people should have to be taught to not harass people, but like other than like the sponsors, I just hope the company can get it fixed so people can actually have a decent environment to work in. Like hearing
Exactly.
stuff like that just upsets me because it's just like it's not even anything to do with sponsors and all that stuff. It's just like with just being a decent person, like stuff like that. When I hear it, just upsets me. So that's really honestly the main takeaway I have from that is just I hope if nothing else, regardless of whatever happens with sponsors, I hope they can get their stuff figured out at Activision and get their employees in line.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You ready to move on from news and get into a brighter note on the major five?
For sure.
All right. So our idea for major five is like once again, we don't want to spend an hour and a half because we could if we really want to, like diving in depth into everything. We just kind of wanted to talk um about the highlights. We kind of have like highlights written down. I think maybe we'll go from like the lower place teams up towards the top, like Rokkr ended out with. So like the first thing that like I definitely mentioned I want to touch on for a team that's not playing anymore at champs, but London. Obviously they didn't have a great showing. They lost their first series, right? I'm pretty sure. Um,
Yep.
but Afro shined. I mean, he was awesome in that series. Like I remember on that raid hardpoint they had when he was like back laundry, he popped like an insane like 2 or 3 piece back laundry and got a bunch of kills, and I was like, "This dude is going crazy." And then, I mean, out of nowhere, they somehow ended up losing like 250 to 248 or something. But I just want to give a shout out to Afro quick. We don't have to talk about it much because obviously they're eliminated, so we don't want to spend too much time. But like, Afro proved like he's definitely a player to watch going into next year, and I mean, he's got a lot of potential to be maybe like one of the top subs in the league. I think he has that potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we haven't been able to see him play a lot, especially in the majors and on a LAN environment because the Ravens have been getting eliminated pretty early.
Yeah,
And to be honest, it's kind of when I see Ravens on the schedule, it's not a match that I'm necessarily flipping on the stream for.
yeah,
But the few highlights that I have seen from him and the few maps, like I distinctly remember what you're talking about on that raid map.
hmm
His movement and just awareness on the map was next level, and I definitely think that they can the Ravens should look to keep him around because if he falls to another team, he's going to be a problem.
yeah. And he's from the UK. I'm pretty sure about that. He's from the UK, so like
Yep.
I mean, that helps even more that it's a player that's kind of like because obviously the people that are fans over there in the UK probably prefer to have players that are from the UK because it's kind of a cooler storyline. So, I mean, if they somehow let him fall through their lap, I don't know what they're doing. But shout out to Afro. He played awesome at the major. Wish we would have got to see him the whole year because maybe that could have changed the outlook for London. I mean, for a little bit there, they were in the hunt to potentially get like an 8 seed. They just never were able to have a really good tournament placing, which obviously hurt them.
Yeah, I mean, not to harp too much more on London, but they had that whole thing with like Alex taking a few months
Yeah.
off, and then they brought him back and got rid of Zed, and uh, they 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 had Parasite for a while,
Yeah,
and
I honestly kind of forgot about that until I saw a picture of him in a London uniform. I kind of forgot that happened. Happened so early in the year, and they were so forgettable because they went like 0-5 in group stages, or like 0-6 total with him. So it was so forgettable. But yeah, the other team we want to talk about um, was the Thieves is the next one. They fell short of expectations, obviously. Not that we were expecting them to make a crazy run, but they were one of those teams along with like Florida. We can probably throw them in the same group. Florida and Thieves both disappoint. Two teams that maybe we weren't expecting because they're both in losers. We weren't maybe, or no, Thieves was in winners to start, but we were expecting them to maybe not make a crazy run, but we were hoping maybe for like a top 4 run for one of the two and like prove that they're a team that we should take seriously for champs. Um, but both obviously get eliminated early. Kind of tough to see because, like I said, those are two teams that I feel like if they click just right, could find themselves in like a top 3 at champs. But nothing to show here, especially with Florida getting reverse swept by another time by a pickup New York team without Clay. Just disappointing showings for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, for Thieves, it was tough. They had to play the Ultra on day one.
Yeah.
Ultra pretty much ran through them.
Hmm.
And then we didn't see Thieves. Oh, we saw Thieves. Or sorry, we didn't see Florida until day two.
Yeah.
And they played up against NYSL, and they choked pretty bad. Uh, yeah, just I don't know. I feel like there's a lot left to be desired with both of those teams, and you know they're not riding too high going into champs. That's for sure. You know, so I guess we just kind of got to see what happens in the off season, because I don't think that they're gonna make any deep runs.
Yeah. I agree, but just a disappointing weekend from them to be sure. But the other team, obviously another team that fell a little short of winning the event, but had a pretty crazy run was Surge. I mean, they go out on about as high of a high I can imagine for that team, based on the fact that they couldn't win a freaking series all year, and then they go from not winning a series to beating Faze, obviously the best team over the course of the year. So kind of a cool storyline. It was maybe if it wasn't for the ultra reverse sweep that happened in the grand finals, it would have maybe been the story of the weekend. Um, like the bottom team upsets the top team. But like that was like the moment that I was like, God, I didn't realize how much I missed land. Obviously, I knew I missed it, but like hearing that crowd go crazy for the underdog and like watching them take it out, and um, I think a big takeaway for me from this is it proves like all these players were talking about how a crowd can make a difference in a series, and obviously land makes a difference. But I think that series is like the definitive proof that like a crowd and like land makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last podcast that Octane, obviously one of my favorite personalities and players in the
Yeah.
scene, and to see him and uh, his team finally make some kind of noise at an event, and to have it be against against FaZe, like the proverbial best team in the game, and
Yeah.
the crowd turning on FaZe and cheering openly for Surge was just wild.
Yeah.
Uh, and and they were not playing for any kind of a champ's berth either, so they were
Nope.
kind of just going for broke, trying to win as much money from the placement as they could, I guess, and
Yeah.
playing for their own pride.
Hmm.
And you really saw um players like Pristini and Classic
Yeah.
really like kind of
Classic went
just
crazy.
they had a revitalization of their seasons right
Yeah.
there.
I mean, you could even potentially
Yeah.
say career saving for a guy like Classic, because people were really down on him, and now people are like, "Man, Classic on land in a big moment had a great series." You could say that could have maybe saved his chance at a spot next year in the CDL.
Yeah, and I mean, you even had people saying like, Surge have got to run it back next season. Like that was way
Yeah,
too good to be like just chalking the team up and starting from scratch. And I don't know. I mean, just crazy, really, really cool to see Surge do that
yeah,
losers bracket run. Uh,
and I also think like to touch on the crowd again. The last thing I really want to say about this is like obviously, I mean, Cellium, Abezy. I mean, Cellium isn't a world champ, but I mean, you've got Abezy, world champ, multi-event winner on land. Simp, same thing. Arcitys, same thing. Like these guys aren't getting like shook by a crowd, like we said, like some like rookies could. Like these guys are not getting shook by a crowd, but I think it can show how like the momentum and like hearing the crowd scream for you on the side of Surge can like give you a little more juice and like a little more energy for like a guy like Classic who's maybe getting a little more hyped, and like it's not that like the FaZe guys were getting shook, but like a crowd can sometimes make a difference to give you juice. Like I'm sure if you're an Optic player and you hear that crowd going crazy for you, like it gives you a little extra juice to like be motivated, and maybe you like shoot a little straighter, and like not that those players are getting shook, but I think it showed that the crowd, like when it's on one side, same thing as in the finals with Minnesota, like it can make a little difference. It can give the players a little bit of extra mojo, a little extra swag, and like I think it helps. I mean, obviously, don't know because I've never heard the crazy cheers from me on land, but I got to imagine.
yeah, definitely. Exactly why we were all saying that there's no way that champs can be without fans. Like they
Yeah,
got to find some way. So I'm just looking forward to hearing more crowd noise again.
yeah. All right, the next team to talk about, I think we can go to Optic next. They fall short of obviously winning the major, but I don't think it's as disappointing as like a Faze falling short. We can kind of loop them together. I mean, I think Faze obviously really disappointing. There's no other way to put it. They don't win a series at the major. I don't want to wish bad on a team, but to me, I actually like am not that upset. I mean, they've won freaking what 3 events this year anyway, so like it's not like they haven't gotten their piece of the pie, but like I kind of almost like the fact that they got double eliminated because I to me it makes champs more interesting because like before it seemed like you no doubt had to pick Faze to win champs like before Major 5 because like they had won 3 out of 4 events. They took second at the other one. Like clearly the best team. It seemed like you were stupid if you didn't pick them. But now like you can throw in like the Toronto. You can maybe throw in an Optic, even Empire, Minnesota now since they won an event. Like I'm almost glad they struggled because I think it makes champs more exciting.
Yeah, I mean that losers finals Ultra V Optic. I mean, barring a really bad series from Formal, we could have been talking about Optic versus Rokkr in the grand final.
Yeah.
I mean, a rare bad series from Formal. Usually he's a really steady rock.
Yeah.
Everyone has bad series. It just sucks that Formals happen to be losers finals. And other than that, though, I thought we saw Optic playing really, really good Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I thought we saw Envoy playing a lot better.
Yeah.
He was playing more. He was playing more with the team.
Mm-hmm.
He was hitting those weird flanks and those like cruddy spots, especially like he was playing those at the right time. It's not like he was going for it every single life like sometimes we have seen him do.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I feel like with his reputation too, they expect him to hit it every time because that's normally what he does. So now, like you said, as he started to play with the team, his flank started to work a lot more again because like he started to play with the team and they were always checking for it. They'd be checking, checking, checking. He wouldn't do it. And then right when they stopped checking, he'd hit the flank or hit the pinch or just hit a weird angle. And like also Scump, he's starting to get into champs form. He's looked about the best he's looked all year over these last couple weeks.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people might not have had Scump in their top 5 SMGs like we did last week, but I definitely think that he's earning his uh his spot there. And
And thank God, because we need him in the league for content purposes and for just viewership purposes. So I hope he keeps frying.
yeah, and was it Octane a few weeks ago on the eavesdrop that was saying this is like he was like, Hector, this is Seth's best game since God knows when. Like
I would agree. I think it's probably his best game since probably the end of IW, like IW champs. I mean, his best games were like unless you're talking about like really old like MW3, everybody says he was the best MW3 player to ever live. If you're like skipping out the really old games, I mean, AW and BO3 you can make an argument both years that he was the best player in the game for a majority of the year, but like IW end of the year he was really good. World War II obviously worst year of his career, and then Champs Black Ops 4, I was at that event. He was different at that event. He was frying. He dropped like a 1.3, but I would agree overall for a whole game, this might be his best game since like IW.
yeah, so
Which is
that
good to
just
see.
I guess next we can touch on Dallas's performance at stage 5.
Yeah. Kind of like almost the same boat as Optic. Like they didn't have a bad weekend, but like after seeing them finish second at the last major and even taking Faze all the way to a final map in that finals, like I think all of us were expecting like for them, like we would hope that they can repeat and get back to the finals, or maybe at least top 3, maybe win the finals. And to me, they looked worse than they did at Major 4. Shotzi obviously had like one of his worst series of his young COD career against Optic in that like losers semis match. Unfortunate for him, but I don't think that's like a Shotzi was shook by the card or anything. I just think he just had an unfortunate time for a bad series because we know this dude can get it done in the big moment. He's a world champ.
Yeah, and I mean, I think right after they got bounced, we saw some tweets saying like, Crim's cat went missing and he didn't have time to go
Yeah,
look for
I saw
it,
that.
and
Yeah,
then but then he's given these hysterical interviews with Jess, and he's talking
yeah,
about how him and Formal are out in the smoking section bean dipping each other, and he's coming out with the I mean, Crim is just a content machine,
he's a
and
character.
I was dying when he came out with the cowboy hat and
Yeah.
the pistol shot. It was just like you can't make this stuff up.
Another guy that like Scump, hopefully just please never retire. He brings way too much.
Well, I mean, just please never stop being yourself
Yeah.
because he's out there saying that he's like, you know, I don't know if I can say it on this podcast, but he's like, yeah, I had to run off to the bathroom and just all this stuff. It's yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna look too much into Dallas, getting bounced when they did, and I think they're gonna come back and they're gonna be really solid for champs.
Yep, me either. I've learned to never doubt Crim in the big tournaments, so I'll say they struggled. I would have liked to see them play better. I would have liked to see Shotzi show up more in that Optic series. But when it comes down to it, they still finished what, fourth?
Yep, they got bounced in the loser
Yeah.
semis.
They still finished like fourth. And you've got a guy like Crim who is a 3-time world champ, regardless if one was online. When it comes to the big one, he's always got a chance. And they're still like a top 4, top 5 team for sure. They definitely have a chance. They're in the winners bracket. I would not be shocked if they come out next week and win it all. As we know from last year, we saw they were the team that was by far the most prepared. So obviously for Dallas, disappointing that they weren't able to get another top 2 finish, but I would say my scale of 1 to 10 panic, I'm at the bottom of the scale. I'm not panicked at all for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we can talk about the 2 final teams. Obviously, completely different sides of the spectrum here. We've got Ultra, who I can't even imagine the feeling that they had after blowing a 4-0 lead. I don't even know how they kept composure to the degree that they did on the stage. It was just, I can't imagine losing like that. And also Rokkr, insane composure to pull off the reverse sweep, obviously. So I don't know how much you can really say about it. I mean, one of the greatest comebacks, if not the greatest comeback we've ever seen in Call of Duty. Obviously, pair that with one of the biggest chokes we've ever seen in Call of Duty history.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Ultra just absolutely wipe the floor. We saw them win the opening hardpoint 250-34. Then they won the S&D 6-1. Then they won a raid control 3-1. And then hardpoint 2 is where it started getting a little bit closer. They still won that one 250-194, so they're up 4-0. And then Rokkr rattle off 5 straight maps. They win a 6-3 S&D, a 3-1 control, a 6-2 S&D, a 250-165 hardpoint, and then a 6-3 S&D. So I mean, definitely it was heavier on the S&D in the second half of the series, which might have allowed a team like Rokkr to slow it down and kind of get back to basics.
The S&D wins championships model really came alive here.
Yeah, but I mean, as this was happening, I mean, I thought it was going to be a 1-hour series. It turned into a 3-hour series. Just one of the craziest things that I've ever witnessed on my television.
It was absurd. It was so fun to watch too. I was really disappointed when it hit 4-0, and then I kind of sat there, and I'm not gonna say I was like Rokkr are gonna win this, but I was kind of thinking in my head, like TJ said. I looked on that side of the stage, I saw Attach, and I'm like, if there's one dude that's gonna do it, this dude is a part of every big comeback and every clutch moment. I always say, I've said it a million times, he is the iciest player in the league. If I have a guy in a one-on-one search and destroy round 11 for all the marbles, there's literally no doubt in my mind 100 out of 100 times I'm choosing Attach to be that guy. He is so icy in 1v1, just so icy overall. Also, last thing I want to say on Major 5, shout out to Attach. I'm sure you saw the CDL Intel clip where he kind of like got out of the huddle of his team after they won and like calmed them down, said, hey, when we go over, we shake hands, like fist bump or whatever. We got to like kind of calm down. Like obviously these guys are going through a heartbreak, and they just like, he got everybody kind of calm, poised. They went over there, shook hands, and then they got their celebrating in, which is, I mean, obviously cool to see from a pretty young player. I mean, he's in his 20s, especially because it's not like a full-blown, he had like veteran athletes to learn from like you do in sports. Like it's pretty cool to see him like keep composure and teach the young guys, like, got to win with some class and some grace. Obviously the guys on the other side of the stage are still like your competitors, your friends. Like you don't just want to go over there and just like have a huge ego on them and like basically tell them they suck. Like obviously they're going through a lot. So shout out to Attach for that.
Yeah, a pro's pro.
All right, time to move on. The next 2 things I kind of wanted to go over like pretty quickly. We want to do like where we rank the teams, power rankings heading into champs. This isn't exactly how we think they're going to finish, obviously, based on matchups and stuff, but how we have them power ranked heading into champs just for the 8 teams that are there. And then just quick recap some of the challengers winners, because the next segment might go on for like an hour or so. So we can just brush over these pretty quick. I don't really think we need to get into too much of why we have the teams where we have them, but I just want to know power rankings. Who you got in the 8 spot going into champs?
I have Florida, and they're trending down.
I have Florida as well, and it pains me because I like a lot of players on Florida, but at this point, I think the only maybe argument you can have is throwing like NYSL down there because we're questioning what the roster is. But yeah, Florida I have at 8 as well. 7 I have NYSL.
Yeah, 7 I have NYSL as well. I was thinking about putting Thieves there, but I don't know. I mean, I think with New York, just I don't know how much practice do they have? What's their is Clay even going to be there?
To me, it's like you've no doubt. I think you know your top 5. Just whatever order you want to put them in. I think you can make an argument for a lot of orders, but to me, it seems like you got your 2 losers bracket teams. I had LAT at 6. I'm assuming you do as well.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, and then NYSL at 7. NYSL is like a weird 7 though, because like if they can get back into form with Clay, I could see them making a run to top 3 or something. So it's like they're definitely of the bottom 3. My team that if they're all in form, like could maybe get like that crazy run, but I don't know that they're the most likely. I think like a team like Thieves might be more likely just because they have a lot of experienced LAN players and stuff like that. But those are definitely the bottom 3 to me. Then at 5, I want to know who you got because this is where I think we could actually like differ a little bit.
Oh, I mean, this is so hard because you would think to put Rokkr there, but Rokkr just won. So how much recency bias are you going to put?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really drop Ultra all the way there, can you? Just because their consistency throughout the year. So I kind of just bit the bullet and I kept Rokkr at 5.
I did not. I was thinking about it. They were definitely the next team that would have been at 5, but I put Empire there just because I feel like Optic showed me more than Empire this weekend, like we talked about. And I think Minnesota is not bad to put at 5, but I want to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because, I mean, yeah, they did have like a crazy reverse sweep to win, but we also saw them beat Faze, and it didn't even take 5 games. And we also saw them 3-0 Ultra. So, like, I feel like Minnesota showed us enough with like Empire. We said how much they struggled, and Minnesota beat Faze 3-1, then beat Ultra 3-0, like teams that we probably both have 1 and 2. So to me, I had to give a little bit more respect because of that to Minnesota. So I went Empire 5 and Minnesota 4.
Yeah, I put Dallas at 4 for the same reasons. Really, just I think they're gonna regain and come back with a little bit more fire.
They got the Crim factor too.
Yeah, you got Crim, you got Rambo, you got they did win champs last year.
Yep.
So yeah, just for those reasons. Who you got at 3?
I have Optic at 3.
Yep, I have Optic as well. I think it's kind of just a natural spot for them to slot in at, especially considering the 2 teams that are ahead of them. I definitely think they're on the uptrend though. Like, so if we had a real power rankings, I would definitely have like the green arrows next to Optic. Like, they're trending in the right direction heading into champs.
Yeah, I agree. I put Toronto then at 2 and Faze at 1. And I think it's just like I can see a world where you could say you're higher on Optic than like a Faze or an Ultra right now because we saw Ultra with the Ultra choke, and then Faze obviously losing 2 matches in their major performance. Like I can see a world where you can like say you have more faith in Optic right now, but just the overall consistency of Toronto always being in the top 3 since like the second major, and Faze obviously always being in the final pretty much. It's hard for the whole year consistency to put all your chips on Optic and have them ahead of either team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely believe in the Ultra regain here. And the Faze regain. I mean, Faze got bounced early as well. Both these teams have won majors throughout the Cold War season.
Yeah.
And both of them have not made roster changes since winning a major. So I definitely think that their coaching staff, their IGLs will come back to life, and they're gonna show up for the big one. I mean, with Ultra, yeah, that really hurts that they lost in the manner that they did. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to kind of laugh at yourself and be like, it was a major. Let's show up and win the big one.
Yeah. I also think like obviously you don't just like want to lose, but it could end up being like a good wake up call for them, like people have said as well.
Right.
For Faze. All right. Next thing we want to touch on, this is another thing we can go over pretty fast. Just wanted to shout out the players and kind of like mention who won Challengers Champs. In the NA, team of ProLoot, Mohawk, Saints, and Spart won. Obviously, some familiar names if you're not much of a Challengers person. Saints has been around the pro scene forever, one of the oldest pros there is out there in terms of years played. Spart, we saw a little bit on LAG last year. He struggled a lot in the CDL, but good to see him bounce back and not let that affect him, still win Challengers Champs. ProLoot, another guy that's been around, like kind of been a top am for years. And then Mohawk, kind of a guy that was getting his name slandered a lot earlier in the year. People kind of said he sucked. And obviously, he proved a lot of people wrong and won the event. And then second, a bunch of names everybody knows: Godarex, Pander, Kismet, guys that have been around for a while. And then Pentagram, a relatively new player, but somebody who's been towards the top of the AM scene for the last 2 years. So, what do you think about those guys?
Yeah, I definitely. I want to echo what other people in the community have said about the BBG squad with Godarex, Pander, Kismet, and Pentagram. They stuck together the entire year. Definitely, and they had really consistent finishes as well.
Yeah.
I definitely think that if a team was looking to blow up and sign, you know, four guys to play, like maybe like a Paris or somebody, I definitely think that that would be a team to look at just because they have uh the chemistry and the camaraderie to
Yeah.
not have like blown up their squad every week like Parasite does or something, or
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean, especially in the NA Challenger scene, to have a squad go that long is a rarity. So
Yeah.
I want to shout them out, and then obviously uh, Saint Smallhawk, Pro Luton Spart. They won a 3-0 in the grand final,
Yeah.
coming from winners. So they only had to play 3 maps. I mean, it was pretty dominant. You know, like we say, a lot of these guys do deserve spots in the pro league, but until we see expansion,
Yep.
we kind of just gotta hold our breath with
Yeah.
exactly how many of these guys are going to get in. But I definitely think that some of these pro teams might not be able to hold a candle to the way the Passion Pit Challenger scene
Hmm.
works. So
Yeah. I also think, like, last thing I want to say on the NA teams at least is I think it's nice to see a nice mix of like younger AMs with like seasoned, like established pros, because I think it proves that like both can win. Like, it's not like the young cracked AMs are just so much better than the old pros, and it's not like the old pros are just so much above like the young AMs. You got guys like Saints, GodRx, Pander, even Kismet, who have been around forever. And then you've got younger guys who haven't been around as long, like Mohawk, Proloot, Spart, Pentagram, like guys that haven't been around that like there's a mix of both winning. It's like nice to see that like this debate that's always like the pros are so much better, the AMs are so much better. Like it's not the case. They're both very good. It's just you got to find the right mix always. Like it's nice to see that.
yeah, do you want to cover the EU scene?
Yeah, EU, obviously, I mean, I'm more familiar with NA players and I'm pretty familiar with the APAC team that won as well because they've been around forever. But in EU, Nasty, Gizmo, Harry, and Vortex won. I'm not as familiar with Gizmo and Harry, but Nasty, I mean, everybody's been talking about him forever. And Vortex, he's also been around for a while. He was on like the Epsilon squad in World War II that just got absolutely bodied in the Pro League. And unfortunately for him, that's what everybody remembers him for, despite that he's a back to back EU Challengers champ now, I believe. And then second place was Beans, Callum, Chax, and Piero. The only one I know on that team really is Chax and Callum. I've heard of pretty much, and APAC. Fergs, Luca Predshocks. I mean, Luca Predshocks. I mean, if you've been around at all over the last 10 years, I mean, especially Shocks, along with like Denz and Fida back in the day. Obviously, they weren't on this team, but Shocks has been around forever. I mean, I said this to Kyle before the podcast, but like my dream would be like Sydney or Melbourne or whatever city in Australia you guys think should have it the most. I really hope they get his team one day and they sign like Shocks and like Denz is the coach. And they have Pred and Luca and all these guys. And I would just love because I think the Australian fans seem to be awesome and it'd just be cool to have a full Australian team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when we get into the EU APAC regions, definitely just, hoping and praying that one day we have expansion. Because right now we only have two EU based teams and only really one of them is willing to sign EU players, and that's the Ravens. And then obviously we have Toronto Ultra with an EU squad, but I don't think they're going to be making any changes if they continue how they're playing. But yeah, just getting these guys in the league or like getting them more exposure than than they're getting right now would be definitely something to that we can hope for in the future.
Yeah. Last thing I want to touch on with challengers, because I obviously said I don't want to cover too much. Methods, Decimate, Slack, TJ, placed 5th, 6th, I believe it was. Disappointing, obviously, for a set of established pros that are all, I mean, great players. Disappointing for them, but obviously less practice. You don't know how seriously they're really taking it and stuff. Don't want to just like say, hey, they would have won if they would have taken it more seriously, because you don't know. But disappointing for them, because obviously you'd like to see them place like top 3 or better. But I'm pretty sure I heard that they lost to BBG and then the team that finished first. So like, maybe a tough draw. They played like 2 great teams, obviously. And then Doug Sensor Martin broke my heart. I watched his stream. His team lost in the first series, and he was kind of losing full. And like, I mean, he had a decent reason to lose full. His team wasn't communicating at all. That sucks for him, because obviously he's a guy that's going to play his heart out. He's got a lot of passion. And then like, regardless of if you think his team had a chance or not, like they played Timmy Phantoms, and I can't remember the other players in the team. They played them in their first losers round match. And that's got to be the most heartbreaking way to lose a tournament I've ever seen. I mean, they lost like 250 to 248 or 249 on a raid hard point. Then they lost a 6-5 search on Miami, and they were up 5-3, and they had round 10 and 11 on defense.
Oh, no.
They lost back-to-back defenses on Miami. They were up 5-3, lost an offense. It's like, okay, whatever, 5-4. They had back-to-back defenses round 10 and 11, and they had a 2-on-1 with the guy stuck behind the van on the site under purple. And they lost it to lose a 6-5 search, and then they went to the control and they lost it 3-2. So like the most heartbreaking way to lose, obviously they might have lost the next round if they won that or something, but just like I feel for the dude. I mean, I know how much passion he has, and he just seems to get shit on with his name all the time. And it's just like, I feel for the dude. I love Doug. He's a great personality for the league. I wish he was a better player. Like he's got enough ability that he could find his way onto the roster if we expanded stuff to like be a face, but my God, I wish he was just a little better, that he was like a no doubt pickup, because he would be so good for the league if he was in the league, like personality and like viewership wise.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you kind of start to get frustrated with how we haven't seen expansion. Like we have all these guys, just sitting down in challengers, and some of them have gone over to content.
Yep.
And I don't know, we just it'd be nice to see these guys on pro teams, but unfortunately, we might not, or it's few and far between.
That'll be my transition here to the GM thing. This is, I mean, mostly joking, but like to me, damn it, if you're Paris, you're LAG, mostly not as much Surge because they had Octane and stuff, but like if you're Paris and LAG and you're literally not even attempting like to spend any money or make roster changes, for God's sakes, if your team is gonna suck anyways, just sign Doug. Sign Doug, put a team around him, and like if you're gonna be LAG and be like just complacent and happy with getting 12th both years, then I mean, damn it, sign Doug and just have a fun team that's gonna be crazy and bring in viewership.
Yeah, I don't know why that hasn't happened.
All right, so transitioning, this was like the big segment we wanted to do. I mean, I think we're about an hour into the podcast. We'll probably try to keep it to like a half an hour, 40 minutes, but who knows? The big segment we want to do this week was playing GM for teams. So this is obviously pre-champs. A lot could change depending on champs' performances. Maybe Florida getting dropped, but if Florida makes a run and wins champs, obviously they're probably going to change our outlook on what we think they should do as a GM. But this is pre-champs, because I thought it'd be interesting if we did a pre and post-champs. So pre-champs, what we think each team is going to do. We're going to start from the bottom of the league. So like Paris technically was listed as last place. We'll start with what we do with them. And we're going to try to be realistic, because like obviously for Paris, with like Octane being a free agent, I could say, hey, they should sign Octane and this guy, and like say they should sign a bunch of superstars like Hook and stuff. But like, I mean, I don't think Octane's even going to consider Paris. So we're going to try to be realistic with it. So for the first one, I'll start off this one, I think, for Paris. I think, like I said, they're going to strike out on the big name guys. I think they'll obviously reach out to Octane. He'll say no. Reach out to like a guy like Slash if he's a free agent. He won't go there. So I think they're going to strike out on those big name guys, and they're going to have to like scramble to maybe find challengers players or potentially keep players in the current roster. And to me, I would love to see them keep Aqua as their like kind of like their building block. Multiple games he's been on not a great team the past couple years, but even in the past, Black Ops 3, even IW, he's been on some teams that were like not great, but they always find a way to find top 3 on LAN because they find a way to be so good at search. And he was, I mean, actually pretty good this year. Aqua was overall, like the beginning of the year, he was frying. I would love to see them keep Temp, but I just think he wants a fresh start. And same with a guy like Scraps. I don't think it'd be the worst thing to keep a guy like Scraps, like if you were going to choose between Scraps and Temp. But I think Scraps also just doesn't want to be there. I heard the Pred rumors, the Australian champ, that he might go there. So I'd love that. To me, I think they should keep Aqua, sign Pred as a sub, and then you've got Pred on your sub and Aqua on your AR, and then you find 2 Challengers players with the highest upside possible that are willing to play for you, and you just roll it and have Aqua as your leader. That's my thought for Paris.
Yeah, I definitely am along the same line, keeping in mind, that it's been highly rumored that Pred will be going there, or something along the lines of that. I just have that I would want to look at the AM scene and sign your guys for 50K or whatever the minimum is. I don't know if they're, you know, I would be surprised if they started spending money now. It seems
Yeah.
like they're kind of in that boat where they just want to feel a roster, but maybe get one of the AM teams as a whole. Like I know at the beginning of the year everyone was talking about, oh, you got to sign like these like the West Star team before they all went their own ways. They were like, oh
Yeah.
man, the West Star team's holding out to sign next year as a whole squad, but maybe we'll see like the BBG squad or one of the or the I think the team name was like We Are Trying Now or something like
Yeah.
the uh the team with Pro Mohawk Saints and Sparta that won. Maybe we'll see them sign on as a squad or something, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Or you could just go poach some amateur talent and hope that luck into getting a standee or somebody like that, like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I just want to see Aqua get his chance because I think he played really well this year and deserves it. I just think he's had a bad shake of back-to-back teams. But Aqua's old team, LAG, what do you have them doing? Because I think I have a little bit of a weird take compared to what most people do. So let's hear what you have to say for LAG.
All right, for over a year now, we've been hearing about how LAG has all this money. They're owned by the Kroenke Sports that owns the Rams. They built that brand new arena in LA.
Yeah.
I think they have some kind of ownership in like Manchester United over in England too or something. So obviously the ownership is not poor. If I was the GM of LAG, I would go try and poach a big name from free agency. I would look to potentially target an Octane, a
Mm-hmm.
Slasher, a Skies, or a Clayster,
Yep.
and then build around, like ask them who they want, and then go pay for those guys too. Whether that means you're buying people out of their contracts, that might be that would be if I was entitled to all this cash, I would be going out and spending.
Yep.
Because you've had 2 straight years of people laughing at you,
Mm-hmm.
people making memes of you. Uh, so I think it's time that LAG, establish themselves and build more of a reputation. And I think that would start with a big name poach like that. So you know, maybe somebody like that, and then whoever that big name wants to play with, go get them. I don't have anybody else in mind, because I would let my players tell me who they want, and then I would go get them.
Yeah. All right. I think mine's going to be a little more controversial for LAG as well, kind of like yours was. Um, I agree 100%. I think if the owners are willing to go out and spend money, I think that your method is 100% the right way to go about it. You got to go try to poach a big name player and then get players to play around him. I think you're 100% right, but I don't think the ownership's going to spend the money. I think they're going to stay cheap. So that's kind of the philosophy I went with mine. And I was going to say I'd love to scrap the whole roster, but I think I'd keep Apathy. And there's a couple things I'd say I keep Apathy for. The other guys, they're gone. I think I'd keep Mental as a sub because I think he got a bad shake of it, and I think he's a potential player that could be really, really good. He's obviously the GOAT in his respective esport that he came from. So I think as long as nobody else poaches him, I'd keep Mental as a substitute. Like not in the starting lineup, but keep him as a substitute, keep him on the challengers team, just in case he like starts frying next year and the team isn't doing well. Like I still think he has potential and you probably get him on a minimum contract, so it's whatever. But I'm keeping Apathy because if we're on land next year, I mean, 2-time world champ, like awesome player. I think he could still have it with the right team around him. And I don't think they have a lot of options. So I think they kind of have to keep him. They don't want to spend on players, so people aren't going to want to go there. First guy I'm reaching out to is Accuracy and Slasher. I think Slasher says no because I think he's going to have other options, even though I think he's leaving LAT. So then I'm going to reach out to Accuracy. I don't think Accuracy is going to have a lot of options. So I think he comes to LA Thieves, or not LA Thieves, sorry, LAG. I think if you get Accuracy, you have Apathy on the roster. I think you reach out to Temp because once again, I don't think you can get a lot of players. I don't think Temp's going to have options. I think he'll come there, play flex, and then you find some cracked challenger sub to go with it. If you can't get Accuracy, you reach out to somebody like Methods, who I think would take the spot. Maybe Gravity from challengers. So to me, I think try to get like an Accuracy, a Methods, a Slasher, a Gravity, because I don't think they're going to have the ability to pull a guy like Octane or a Clayster. So I think they get one of those like good mid-tier ARs to go with Apathy, maybe bring on Temp, and then get a Challengers player because I think that's the best they're going to be willing to do, unfortunately. But I think it would make them more competitive, at least. Accuracy, Temp, Apathy, and a cracked Challengers player. I think it would make them better and at least like win some series compared to this year's team.
Yeah, I mean that's I just I don't know. I think you almost have to just blow it up, but I definitely respect the route that you're going. Because I think that's a lot more likely than them
Yeah.
going out and spending, but one
What
can
should
dream.
I mean, what should they do? 100% your route's better than what I said, but I think unfortunately they're not going to go the route that you said because I don't think they're going to want to spend. But
Right, right.
next team, London. I can go first in this one since you went first in the last one. To me, I am absolutely locking in Afro to the Supermax. I'm sure you agree. I think he's one of the most young, up and coming, talented players. I'm not going to say he's the most talented young player, but I think he's up there on that list. What he showed us in that Major 5 on LAN, he wasn't shook by the crowd. He was awesome and played amazing. I'm signing him, locking him, especially since he's from the EU. Like, it's a perfect guy to market around. And from like his interviews and like hearing him talk, he sounds like he has a pretty good personality too. You could throw him in some content. Giving him the super max. I'm also keeping Paul. I know he's not from Europe. He's NA kid, but he played awesome. I think he's got a lot of potential as a flex, and I don't think I'm ready to just give up on him and just like let him go. So I'm keeping Paul as a flex. I know Shawnee's their cornerstone, but I'm letting him go. I just don't think he has that high ceiling potential. I can see a world where they keep him though, because he's like been a staple of their organization. But I'm bringing Zero back for the millionth stint on the team as the main AR, and then I'm getting Nasty on the team immediately. Everybody's talking about how Nasty's like gonna go there, done deal, European player going there. Believe he's from the UK, not 100% sure, but I'm having Zero on the main, bringing him back for the millionth time. Paul's on my flex, and then Afro Nasty on the subs. I think that'll be the highest upside London team we've seen really since the CDL was adopted, and they also maintain 3 out of 4 players being from the UK. As well as I also think that this might be the most realistic one I say, because I think it's pretty realistic that they keep Paul and Afro. I think it's very realistic that they sign Nasty, and I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Zero comes back to be the main.
Yeah, I definitely am very agreeable with your EU centric roster moves there. I definitely think Afro is sticking around.
Yep.
I'm more questionable. I definitely would reach out to Zero and see if he wants to come back. I know there was maybe some bad blood when they
Yeah.
released him due to his like visa issues, and obviously that was no fault of his own. Just a crazy time we were living in. Um, but if he wants to come back, I think he definitely deserves a spot. Uh, so we have Afro there. Then I definitely think just get 2 more EU guys from the AM scene. Like you're saying, we definitely need to get Nasty on the team, and then maybe one of his teammates from the winning team, like whether that's Gizmo, Harry, or Vortex. I definitely have heard Harry's name tossed around a little bit
Yep.
too. But yeah, that would be my team, and I definitely think you can keep it pretty cheap with that. It might be that Zero is your highest paid player, so
Yeah.
I
I
definitely
mean,
think.
I think there's a world too where they do get rid of Paul. Maybe they want to go full European again. And it's not like Paul was like undeniably has to be on the team, but he showed a lot of flashes of being really good. I also could see a world where they keep Shawnee too, because he's kind of like established as their franchise guy, like their cornerstone. And I don't think a roster, if they had Shawnee instead of Zero, would be bad either. Shawnee, Paul, Afro, Nasty. I think that'd be a pretty good team still. Shawnee's not a bad player. He's just a good, solid AR. I just don't think he has that like high ceiling.
Yeah, I definitely think that I don't know. I just lean more towards them sticking with an EU Great Britain kind of
Yep.
roster. I think that just kind of the camaraderie and the vibes might be just kind of thrown off a little bit if you add one like American guy in there. I don't, not that they can't calm or be friends or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
we've kind of seen it with the Ultra. They kind of just like pushed methods out and brought in Insight, and that made their EU team.
And how unfortunate would that be for Paul too? Like, because it's not like he deserves to get kicked out, but I don't know that he'd get another spot if he was kicked out of London, which that'd be unfortunate because another player I think we probably both agree deserves a spot in the league, like a million other players that aren't in the league.
You have anything else to say on Ravens?
I think I'm good. The only thing is, now that I'm thinking about it, I'd like, if Paul does get kicked off, that'd be a player I'd target if I was LAG, like a cheaper player that they'd be willing to pay for that has high upside. Like, that'd be a player I'd target if I was LAG.
Yeah, well, Paul kind of falls into my my next team here. So we'll go on to Seattle,
Okay.
team that finished just outside of playoffs, as we all know. It seems like Octane is burning the bridge as he's leaving. He's probably not coming back. I don't know if I'd ask him if he wants to come back. But I would definitely look to keep Pristini and Gunless.
Okay.
It seems like they're friends. I mean, well, we know that they're friends outside of the game. We don't have to guess on that, but the way we saw them kind of, gelling towards the end of the season, as a whole team, I think as a GM, I would keep them. Then I'd go out and get Paul X as my AR.
Okay.
And then with that, we have an AR, we have Gunless at the flex, then we have Pristini as like an aggro SMG. We've heard Alec also talk about how Pristini, has always naturally played an AR in the past, but he's kind of just transitioned to this like aggro, super aggro SMG, throws his life away, sometimes unnecessarily. So maybe if we can get Pristini playing more of like a slower, methodical SMG, we can go out and target John or Asim.
God,
Those
I
would
love
be
John.
those would be my guys, and we've definitely we've seen John have his ups and downs this title. He's kind of come into Thieves and struggled a little bit, but I think he'll hit the market, and I don't think he's going to be too pricey. And we've seen with Seattle, they don't really want to make any moves. They're kind of hesitant to spend money. I think Octane was their big name player that they signed. So if we could get John or Asim on the team, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I never even thought of the Asim one. I like that one a lot. And I'm pretty sure Surge had the most expensive roster in MW because of all the big names like Enable, Karma, Slacked, Octane, like that. It's just like they had expensive names that didn't mesh. But I'm kind of in the same boat, not player wise, because you had some good ideas I just didn't think of, to be honest. But I'm operating as a Seattle GM on the thought that Octane is good as gone. I'm obviously going to do everything I can to keep him off from anything, but I don't think he's coming back. So I'm operating under the fact that I obviously want to keep Octane, but I don't think it's possible. So Octane's gone. I think he's going to LAT. Octane, 100%. I think he's going to Thieves. So then that means Slasher's got to be gone. So the first thing I'm doing as Seattle, reaching out to Slasher. And I'm trying to get him to come over and replace Octane. Because like I said, rumors are already flowing that Slasher's gone. He's on the hot seat and stuff. So unless like Thieves win champs, I think Octane's going there. So I'm going to do anything I can to bring in Slasher. I think I have a decent pitch to him because I'm also keeping Gunless, a guy who he's had a lot of success with in World War II on Rise. And I'm also keeping Classic, I think. I can see a world where they keep Pristini. They basically just say Slasher's coming in for Octane and keep the other three. But I don't really think Pristini would want to play with Slasher. I don't know. They just don't seem like a duo that would vibe, if you know what I mean. I don't know. He could. But I also don't know that like a guy like Pristini has a lot of options outside of Seattle. So like I could see a world where they keep Classic. If we're on LAN, I mean, Slasher and Classic have had a ton of success together. Gunless and Slasher had a ton of success together. To me, if Pristini wants to leave, I'm reaching out to John, like you said, because John Slasher won world champs together. They have a lot of success. Gunless and John have won events together. Classic and John have won events together. This is basically a throwback team. Like best case scenario, I think if Pristini decides to leave, Octane decides to leave, I think Gunless and Classic probably don't get a roster spot anywhere else because of the reputation Gunless has, and then Classic, people are kind of down on him. I think on LAN, with a roster of Slasher, Gunless, Classic, and like a guy like John, this team could have a lot of potential because I don't think they're going to go out and take a chance on a Challengers player.
Yep, very fair.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you tell me what you got going for Florida Mutineers?
All right. So we talked about this one, not actually what we were going to do, but we talked and mentioned it before the podcast. I basically wrote a novel, so I might dig in a little bit here and rant about Florida. But I think it's time to make a choice. Like I said, if they win champs, we can have a different talk about it. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I think it's time to man up here and make a choice. You got to choose between Big Wake and Skies, in my opinion. I think one has to go. You've got to choose one. To me, the guy that'll be more sought after as a free agent is probably Skies. He has a lot more connections. It seems like Big Wake's a little quieter and doesn't like maybe like socialize with the pros as much as a guy like Skies does, who seems to have a ton of like good friends, like Formal Hook. He's good friends with like big name pros. So I think there'll be more of a market for Skies, which might make it harder to keep him. But as weird as it sounds, they're both so good. I think we saw in 4v4, they just maybe don't work together for a winning formula like in 5v5. And to me, you go all in to keep the face of your franchise, Skies. I think you let Big Wake go. I don't know if you think that's a hot take, but I'm keeping Skies. I'm letting Big Wake go, despite the fact that Big Wake is disgusting, like potential MVP candidate. I just don't think they work well together, so you got to choose one or the other. But also, Skies is a staple MVP candidate at AR. I think you lock him in. I think you lock in Neptune. So you got your main AR, like a main sub, solid start. I think you try to lock in Hook, the Halo connection with him and Ogre too. I think you bring in Hook. He's one of Sky's best friends. Makes sense vibes wise. This team always has seemed to struggle with vibes. They don't seem like a close team. Then you just need a flex. I think you look for a real veteran here. If Gunless becomes available, I think he'd be an interesting player to bring into this team. Screw it. Bring Karma out of retirement. He'd be a great flex for this team. And then the crazy ultra mega super hot take I had for this roster that I kind of mentioned I was going to have. I think that if Dallas struggles at champs and the players on Dallas are kind of fed up, like we've seen players in the past get, and they want to bring Clay back over Krim, I think that Florida offers Krim the biggest contract he's ever seen in esports history to come over to the team. They have to. And then obviously they would pick up a different sub than Hook because I don't think Krim and Hook ever played together again. And to me, if he becomes available, it's John. I would love to see this team if Krim somehow finds his way off Dallas, which I think is a long shot. But I could see Dallas finishes top 6 at champs. Shotzi's like, screw this guy Krim. He's annoying me. I think Dallas will side with Shotzi and Illy as their future. Bring Clay back. I'm sure he'd want to be there. And my dream team, like dream offseason for this team would be to end up with Skies, Krim, Neptune, and another cracked sub.
Wow. that is ambitious. And
I don't think it's gonna happen. That's why I would
I
say like my roster that I would like to see them go for is Skies, Hook, Neptune, and a veteran flex. That's my realistic roster.
I really like that. I kind of went the other way. If I'm the GM, I'm keeping Neptune and Big Wake.
Okay.
I think if Skies is still on this 1+1, which we obviously don't know anything about the contract situation. I think he might be looking to take more money elsewhere, and he might be fed up with this whole like with this team, especially they've kind of floundered this year. They haven't really made any, they haven't made much headway in as far as success goes. I think I'd look to a veteran like Accuracy or Slasher maybe to bring in.
I like that if you keep him Big Wake.
Yeah, and then so then we have one of those ARs, we have Big Wake on a flex, we have Neptune, and then I would look to a guy like Asim maybe if he's available, if he's floating around somewhere.
I just kind of forgot that Asim could be available, but he's a good fit for like all these teams.
Yeah, I would look to maybe Asim or if Thieves lets Draza go, I could see Draza coming in, but I definitely feel like they need some kind of an IGL or somebody to kind of like command the troops. I think that might have been Havoc, but they just haven't been having success. So I definitely think that's where Accuracy could find his place. He could find a home there. Yeah, so that's about what I have for Florida.
Because I mean, Asim has to 100% be a free agent, right? Because he was basically signed to be like a fill-in. So there's no way he signed more than a 1-year deal.
Yeah, and who knows what I mean, we're gonna get to NYSL in a second, but who knows? What they're thinking there. If he's fed up with if they decide to keep Clay around and him and Clay aren't seeing eye to eye, what's the deal there? So
All right. This is the last thing I want to say on Florida. I want this to be like bookmarked here. We're at like the hour 25-ish minute point of the podcast. I just had some random thought come to my mind. There's about a 0% chance this roster ever happens, but somebody come to this and call me like a mastermind if the roster next year is Skies, Krim, Neptune, and Zuma. All right, mark it down. Zuma and Krim are good friends. Zuma's coming back. Zuma can still play. I really hope he comes back because talk about another guy that would bring a lot of viewership to the league with his personality now and the way he's blown up. We know he could still play in the league. So that's another like dark horse guy I think that could end up on a lot of these rosters that we aren't thinking about. Like he's talked about wanting to play and he misses competitive so bad. I can see a world where Zuma comes back and he 100% has a spot in the league if he comes back. So that's like another guy that you don't want to say you put him on a roster because we have no idea if he's going to play or not. But like if he decides to play, he's going to find a way on a roster. It's just a matter of where.
yeah, for sure.
All right, LAT. I don't have a lot to say on this one, so I can go first because mine will be really quick if you want me to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think it's almost a done deal. They're getting Octane unless they win champs. I think Octane's replacing Slasher, which is like a dream deal for them. He was kind of the face of 100T when they were in Black Ops 4. Arguably the best player on their team. He was an MVP. They won multiple events. I think you bring an Octane for Slasher. Unfortunate because I love Slasher and he 100% deserves to stay the main AR of this team. Just an unfortunate situation for him. I think you bring an Octane. I think you lock up Draza. Obviously, I'm going to say you lock up Kenny, my favorite player, and I think he also deserves it. I think you keep Draza on the sub, keep Kenny in the flex, Octane on your main AR. And I personally would just keep John on this roster because of the chemistry and history with Octane. They've won so many events together. And I think if it's a full year of LAN, this is a top 3 roster. Draza and John on the subs, Kenny on the flex, Octane on the AR. I think that's exactly what I'm doing, just swapping Octane for Slasher.
Yeah, that's very fair. I definitely think this is where Octane is going to land.
Yep.
It seems like he thinks, rightfully so, that Thieves is his home. I mean, he had that 100 Thieves squad in BO4 was so fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
They just had everything going right for them. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short at champs, and then Octane goes his way. And it looks like he's been, dying to get back there ever since Surge started not working out. So Octane gets to get reunited with Kylo Ken, and his probably one of his best friends in the league.
Yep. That's why this makes sense a lot too.
Ken can run that like faster AR. He's been really good on a second AR this year, even running the main. So then we're looking for 2 subs. I think Draza, they'd be foolish to let him go.
Yep.
Just with the way he's played. And, he's definitely a younger guy to the scene. And so I think he could stay. I think Draza can stay. I'm not sure if John or Pristini is going to take that second sub role. I think, Pristini definitely like, I think he made a good impression on Octane this year. And, with Mud Dog, if I'm Mud Dog and Octane's telling me that, Pristini brings really good vibes and, we just need to like get him in a good org. I think there's, very few better orgs to like support players than 100 Thieves.
I also think Pristini could be a content star, so he'd be great for a team like 100T that is going to want to do content.
Yeah, and definitely would look to either keep him or John, or to get Pristini or keep John. So I don't really have too much else to say on Thieves.
All right, then we'll move on to Minnesota. But the other thing I just thought about Thieves, I kind of just completely forgot Tej was there, and I didn't even like account for him. He's probably going to end up on a roster once again. Go back to our early teams. Your Paris and your LAG. Another guy I'm reaching out to because who knows if he's going to get another roster spot. But if Tej is available and you can get him for a Paris or an LAG, you got to reach out to him as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of with all their roster moves and stuff. Who even knows where these bench players are going to wind up.
Yeah. All right. Then for Minnesota, I don't want to be too much like recency bias here and say they don't have to make a change because we've seen them struggle a lot this year up until Major 5. But I don't really know that one is needed. To me, it attaches the face of your franchise. Maybe not from like a franchise player standpoint, but like just a branding and like he's a great player. Obviously Standy is like your young franchise player, but Attach is like, you know what I mean, face of the franchise kind of guy, like great for content. Everybody loves him. He's like one of the most likable pros. He's got a ton of followers, so that helps your organization out a lot. And just like he's just a reliable player. You know he's going to be good every single year. He might not be the best player in the game, but you know he's going to be one of the better subs. Could play a flex if he has to. Um, Gem of a player to have in your franchise. Like I think one of the best building blocks there is. Standy, obviously, we showed he's a franchise player. You lock him up. Priesta in most games, you can argue is the best flex. I think you lock him up because I think this game just didn't fit his playstyle as well. Even though he's been pretty good, I think he is a player that, like Gunless, truly thrives when you actually switch weapons depending on the map, which this year is obviously mostly just a second Krig the whole time. And I'd love to keep Major Maniac too, but this is like the only way I can see you switching around the roster. Maybe you consider getting rid of him because you reach out to the two hot guys for ARs we keep talking about, Slasher and Octane. I think you reach out to them. If you can get one of them to replace Major Maniac, I think you go for it because you never want to get complacent because you had one good finish. You always want to try to get better. It's like what happened in World War II. Faze got really complacent with their Zuma Priesta attach and replays roster. They had a chance to get Slasher, who was like the best AR in the game in World War II for a long time, instead of replays, who was pretty average, but he brought a lot in terms of comms and leadership and stuff. I think if they would have reached out to a guy like Slasher, they could have maybe finished better than their like fourth at champs and maybe won it or something. But that's in the past. The other guy, the super weird dark horse, I think for this team, I think Clayster could find his way on this team. If he's wanting to leave New York and New York decides to go with the other guys on the team, and Minnesota has maybe a flop at champs, I think Clay one of his best friends is Attach. He's also like decently close with Priesta. Obviously, I don't know what his relationship is with Standy, but we know Clay loves to have the young guns that fly around on his team, Simp and Abezy, Hydra, all these guys. I think there's a world where like Clay could maybe find a way on this team. You got Attach and Clay, the old duo. You've got Standy. I think a team of like Clay, Priesta, Attach, Standy could be one of the best teams in the league. They'd be one of the most popular, which would be awesome for them. I feel like Minnesota is just one of the most popular organizations right now. I feel like everybody just kind of likes them. Like nobody hates Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm GM of Minnesota, I'm definitely I'm nervous going into champs because
Yeah.
this recency bias. This team is flying super high. They all seem to they love playing with each other. We saw everyone have an incredible series. An incredible event. I mean, they blew through they blew through Optic, they blew through Faze, and then they won the champ. Just crazy. So I'm kind of nervous though about how we show up at champs and what the vibes are if we don't finish too hot. Um, but I definitely think if there's a team outside of the top like 2 or 3 that's gonna stick together, it's gonna be these guys.
Yeah.
Um,
I would agree with
so
that.
I'm definitely looking to lock up these guys. I was thinking about who could possibly like if we're gonna make a one player move, who's gonna come. A name that came to mind is Skies if he leaves Florida.
Yeah.
Or I was also thinking possibly Clayster if he's looking to slot into an established team
I
as opposed
love Clay on this
to
team.
as opposed to as opposed to like Clayster like making his own roster and like having to coach these guys again. I think if Clayster moves, he's gonna join an established team
Yep.
and just look for instant success, kind of similar to like a Tom Brady to the Buccaneers kind of thing, like a ready-made team to win.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I definitely think that has some merit to it.
Yeah. All right. So we're almost kind of on the same page. Minnesota, it's not like you really need a change, but I think if one happens, it's Major Maniac, which once again, unfortunate for him because he definitely deserves a spot once again. But that's the problem with these limited roster spots.
Oh, if
Um,
if if Major Maniac leaves, he's gonna get picked up by another team.
I would hope so because he deserves it. All right. NYSL, next team. You want to go first in this one? Or you want me to go?
I'll go ahead. I have a few things to say.
Okay.
First thing, as a GM, I'm sitting down with Clay and asking what his plan is. Before I make any kind of moves, I want to know what Clayster wants to do because he's obviously he commands a lot of respect, and he kind of determines what my actions are going to be.
Mhm.
If Clayster does not want to stay, if he's like, I'm done with this team, I'm done, trying to be a coach as well as a main AR, I'm a veteran, I'm gonna leave. I think I'm gonna try and keep Asim and Hydra and look for two ARs, or an AR and a flex or something. So maybe like looking for a slasher or a skies or somebody. Um, but if Clay wants to stay, I'm gonna do my best to keep the pieces that he wants. I definitely think he wants to still play with Hydra
Yeah.
and a ASIM, so I definitely think we'd be looking for a new flex, if anything. Um, so maybe, unfortunately, that means Mac is going to be on the chopping block. Um,
Mhm.
you know, does that mean you go out and target like a big wake from Florida? You try and poach him.
Yeah.
Uh, he's definitely been one of the best flexes over the last 2 years. Does that mean you go buy out Priesta, or buy out Gunless? Or I don't know if Gunless and Clay would really mesh well on a team, but who knows if he just wants a ready-made player. Because I don't think Clayster really wants to go through this whole like, I want to go build a challengers team and we're gonna build it up again. Um, so yeah, I definitely think Clayster is almost the de facto GM in this case, because what he does is going to determine uh, what my roster is going to do.
Yeah. I completely agree with like the point you're taking. I think everything pretty much rides on Clay. But I think for NYSL, it's time to side with some players. To me, it seems like this is like Clay doesn't want to be with his team based on everything that's happened. Like maybe not necessarily the organization, but doesn't want to be with these players. But I don't know if Hydra's included with that. I don't think he wants to be with Asim and Mac at all anymore. I don't know if Hydra's included with that. If Hydra's included with that, I think NYSL 100% sides with Hydra and sees him as more of the future, like long term than Clay, because who knows how many years Clay has left in him and actually wants to compete for. So I'm going to say that they're going to keep Hydra as their building block and then choose between, if Clay wants to play with him, keeping Clay or both Asim and Mac. And I think they're going to go with Asim and Mac, to be honest, because I think Clay is going to do everything he can to find his way to Minnesota or to Dallas, because they bought out his contract. So I'm assuming Clay is a full free agent, and can do whatever he wants, most likely. Um, and I think that he's going to leave. So I think they're going to keep all three of the other players, Asim, Mac, Hydra, because they've all been so good this year up until like the last couple weeks. And I think that like Mac's established on this team and they like him a lot. And I don't know that Mac gets a spot anywhere else. So I think that like he'll want to stay. I think Asim really loved his time. I think he'll want to stay. And Hydra, they're obviously never letting that guy go unless they're forced to. Um, Once again, like I've said for every team, you take the home run swing for Octane. Don't believe you get him at all. I don't think Octane's going to take any question mark teams. I think he goes to an established team. He's sick of the question marks. Um, I think there's a chance you could get Slasher on this team, but once again, I don't know that Slasher wants to go into a team with three young guns that maybe don't know as much about communication. I think Asim does, but obviously Hydra is still learning English fully. So I don't know if the comms will be there, and I don't know if Slasher could handle that. So I think you look to maybe bring back my guy Accuracy back to New York. I think like a general like him that directs the troops like Clay could maybe benefit on this team, and that might be the best AR they can get. Or I could see a guy like Methods. Methods obviously leaving Toronto because they're not going to have a spot for him. Also, how perfect could that be? The Jersey kid with the New York accent goes to New York. That would be a content machine. I mean, it'd be awesome to see. And my brain also thinks like that. I think about what would be a good roster, but I also think about like content machines and how to make teams popular. And I don't think there could be any more perfect pairing in terms of popularity than Methods on New York. I mean, that would just be perfect. How many chicken parm vids would they make?
Oh my
um,
gosh.
but I actually think it's like they keep those three players. Clay wants to leave, so he leaves as a free agent, and then I think you bring in like an Accuracy or Methods, and I think the team is once again top 6 next year.
Yeah, very fair.
All right, we're kind of into the zone where we can probably breeze over these next 4 teams and then kind of wrap it up because we're almost to that point of like hour 30, hour 40. Because the next team is Optic. I'll just say I don't think they're making a change, so it's really not even worth bringing it up. You've got Scump and Formal. We all know they're never getting dropped until they decide to retire. It just won't happen, because they're Scump and Formal. They have such an established brand. They are Optic. They're never leaving. We both know. until they retire, they're not dropped. Then you got Dashy and Envoy, who are both great in content. Dashy obviously plays AR. Envoy plays sub. They are almost just like slotted in to fit perfectly to fill that like T2P role after both those two retire and carry on the legacy. I think Hecz loves the idea of Envoy is pretty charismatic as well as Dashy. They're both pretty funny, fit content. They play the same roles as Scump and Formal. I think he kind of sees them as like the two up and comers that'll just fill in the Scump and Formal role when they retire. So nothing's changed with this roster, in my opinion, unless they like bomb out and lose back to back series. Maybe something changes or somebody retires, but don't think there's much to talk about here because I don't think anybody's leaving. Don't think they're making a change.
The only thing that I could think of, and this is such a long shot that I don't even know if it deserves to be talked about, but if LAG is going to play this poacher role, if they go buy out Envoy and just like pay him the bag, but I just don't think that Envoy wants to leave. I think he kind of he enjoys this content role. He likes being the prince to Scump's king.
Yep.
And obviously I don't think Dashy is ever leaving Scump again.
No, or Hecz.
And obviously we know that Scump and Formal are not going anywhere. So we can probably just breeze right on to Dallas. What you got there?
I mean, yeah. The last thing I want to say about Optic too is I think Envoy's a pretty smart kid. I think he understands that like even if LAG offers him a bag that's bigger than Optic, the long-term bag of maybe filling in the Scump role is a lot better.
For
setting
sure.
yourself up for life. So, I mean, if I ever got a spot, if I was a good enough player to be in the pro league and I ever got a spot in Optic, I'm never leaving because regardless of what your fandom or like thoughts are on Optic, that is the best team to be on because you're instantly a star and like they'd be dumb to leave that team unless I don't know something wasn't going right. They didn't enjoy the organization. You'd be dumb to leave that team because it's the gold mine to set yourself up for life in a career in the league.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dallas. What I have there, I think you start the year with the same roster as you have now. You go with Krim and Illy, Shotzi, Vivid. I think 100% no matter what, Illy and Shotzi are back. They're your young guns. Only way I can see you maybe making a change is if Clay wants to come back. You could maybe get rid of Vivid, move Illy to the sub with Shotzi, Clay on the main, Krim on the flex. I wouldn't mind that. Or if maybe the team doesn't want to play with Krim because once again, Krim has a little bit of a reputation around him that players maybe don't love to play with him after a while. We saw with the Optic fallout and stuff. Maybe you bring Clay back, replace Krim with him or something. That could be a possibility, although I don't see it happening. So to me, it's pretty much quite possible you just run it back with this team. And then if you're struggling like in the middle of the year where you're kind of stuck in that like third, fourth range, you maybe make a challenger's move and get rid of Vivid or something like that. But the only way I see them making the changes if Clay comes back, then they'd either drop probably most likely Vivid and run it back with that team because Clay and Krim are obviously good friends. Unless there's some falling out with Krim, which I don't think will happen. To me, it seems like it's either Vivid or Clay are the fourth in this roster for next year.
Yeah, I have some thought here that Krim is gonna talk to Clay and say, "Yo, I fucked up, and I can't believe that we dropped you." Because if you recall, that whole roster move was predicated on Hook, or it was with the idea that Hook was staying on the team with Illy and Shotzi, and it was gonna be Krim. And obviously we all know what happened with Hook and leaving the way. So it wouldn't be the weirdest thing if Clay came back as the main, Krim kind of took up that faster AR flex role, and then either Illy or Vivid, I think, would have to bite the bullet because we know Shotzi is not going to leave willingly. I mean, he's probably the one of the top sub talents in the league, and there's no way that he's going anywhere. So it would probably be Illy or Vivid, and if I was the GM, I would definitely look to sell them and get some kind of return, as opposed to just letting them walk. So if I'm being like a shrewd GM, I would definitely be talking with with Hastro and seeing what do we want to do about this. And I think if Krim offers it to Clay and says, hey, let's come back to Dallas, let's send you out the right way. If you're gonna play however many more years, I want you to retire with me. So
yeah, the only other like weird thing I could see happening is Like, we keep saying, like, there's no way they let Shotzzy go, but technically, if we know the contract's right, Shotzzy technically has the freedom to go wherever he wants. So, like, I mean, let's say in a weird world, like, they just place bad at champs and Shotzzy just doesn't want to play for the org anymore or something, and he leaves. What if he just says, "Screw it, Florida, keep Big Wake, Skies, and Neptune, and I'll just come join instead of Havoc, and we'll just go full on talent and screw the comms." I could see something like that. Like somebody offers Shotzzy a bag to play with a really good team. That's like the only way I could see the roster being crazy that we don't expect is because, like, yes, Dallas is obviously not letting Shotzzy go unless it's his choice, which, like, that's the one thing I think, like, I forgot as well when, like, setting things up is, like, Shotzzy 100% Dallas is never letting him walk if it's their choice, but, like, technically he does have the choice if we know the contracts, right? Like, he should be a full free agent, I would think.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of where we kind of fall short in our knowledge is that we don't know what the
Yeah.
contract deals are. You know, I don't believe anybody's signed multi-year deals, but who knows? Um, but yeah, I guess that's all the thoughts I really had on Dallas.
Yeah. Then the next two should be pretty quick, I would think. Ultra, I don't see any reason to change. Only way they'd have a reason to change is like if the mental block from that major choke is just so bad that excuse me, as a team, they just like can't get over it. But they were just way too good this year to let this team break up. And we might not have seen the best of Insight because he's so young in his career. Kleenex, I mean, the only thing that's blocking him is consistency. Bance had a really great bounce back year, and obviously Cammy is a legitimate deserving MVP candidate. He's been unreal this year. So only reason this team changes is if you have like some crazy like mental block from the major choke, or if you're maybe looking to say like Bance. I mean, obviously he's like the leader of the team, so I wouldn't get rid of him, even though he used to be my player to hate on. I said I'd never hate on him again. So I personally would just keep the team, but like I could see if they want to go for like a full on talent route, maybe they try to bring in a guy like Nasty being an EU roster. That's like the only way I could see them making changes if maybe they don't want to play with Bance anymore. But for me, I wouldn't break anything up. That's just the way I could see it going.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to break this team up. I don't think they're gonna have a big block from this from the major
Yeah, neither
five
do I.
upset. Yeah, so I'm just looking to make these guys happy and keep them around.
Yeah, 100%. I'm keeping him around. Only way I see it, like I said, is if they switch out Bance for somebody, maybe because they just, I don't know, don't want to play with him. But I don't see why you wouldn't. He's brings so much more to the team than just he is a nasty player, first of all, but he brings so much in terms of comms and leadership. All right. Then the last team, do we have to talk about him? Faze, keep the same roster. I don't see a reason you ever change.
Yeah, I would never see a reason to change this team. They won 3 majors.
I mean, you've got the two best subs in the world. You got a guy who's arguably the best AR in the world in Arcitys, and you've got the guy who's arguably the best flex in the world in Cellium. They could have all been MVP candidates. Not much to talk about. They have a potential dynasty on their hands, especially if they win this champs. There's no reason to make a change there.
Exactly.
All right. So then we had two last little things to talk about, but we'll just talk about them real quick. We don't have to get too much in depth because that way you can keep it kind of at the same length the podcast was for the last one. We want to talk about like from the week of Major 5, who won the week. Um, for me, I mean, it seems like Minnesota was just too easy of an answer. I didn't choose them because it was like, I mean, they're obviously the winner of this week. You can't even make an argument because of the insane reverse sweep win. But I just went with Seattle Surge. Um, because they all, first of all, had a cool week, had a cool moment for them for such a just awful year mentally. I'm sure it was so tough on them. It was just probably like a relief to finally have a bunch of fans screaming for them and to get something to go their way. Um, and they raised their stock, potentially saving roster spots for guys like Classic and Pristini, who were maybe like questioning if they'd get a spot. So they definitely raised their stock. So to me, all the players on Seattle won.
Yeah, definitely. Could make a case for anybody on Seattle, anybody on Minnesota. I kind of went with I said the CDL won the week. Um,
100%.
and not for just the reason that they had an in-person major with fans, but the people that they got there, they got Faze Swag there, they
Yep.
got Bobby Poff, they got a bunch of like Warzone creators there, and these
Mhm.
guys are letting their chats know, they're letting they're tweeting out that they're going to COD Champs, they were tweeting out that they're going to Major 5. I think that it's drawing some attention to who's all, that these guys are, interested in competitive COD and, they kind of know these players. You got, major guys, like I said, Swag. I mean, he's got like easy 20K viewers every time he starts his stream. Like that's not nothing, and to have all this attention on the CDL, or at least get the CDL's name out there, and then obviously just having the major with fans was massive, and uh, you know like we said, it's one of the best events that we've ever seen in competitive COD, and for the CDL especially, this franchise league to have an event like that was just so big for them.
Yeah. 100% I agree. All right. Down bad moment of the week. Mine is just kind of a
Oh, for sure. And just when we praise the CDL for throwing this event, they kind of make a boneheaded decision and leave the casters in their bedrooms. So it's kind of funny. My obvious down bad is just the Toronto Ultra, and for as long as there's history on competitive Call of Duty, there's always going to be the history that you know the Minnesota Rokkr pulled off one of the craziest upsets that we've ever seen in all of esports, and rattled off 5 straight maps, and it happened to be against the Toronto Ultra. And we just saw from their obviously, like, the cameras and everything, Kleenex is like burying his head in the desk. I mean, obviously, we're catching these guys right at the rawest moment of their competitive careers. And it's obvious to say that they're down bad, but I definitely think that they have so much upside going into champs. I think they're going to regain. I think they're going to finish. They might win the whole damn thing for all I know. Um, but yeah, I mean, definitely in the moment, they're down bad. I guess we'll see you guys on the predictions if we can get it pumped out. We'll definitely look to get that out hopefully sometime next week. I think if we can get our schedules to align. But yeah, definitely great to be back on the mic with you and talking some CDL.